This meeting is being recorded.
How's it going, everyone? Wayne the Unknown here, and welcome to Geeking Out, where we basically discuss everything nerd and geek related. In this episode, I'm joined here, if you all might introduce yourself, starting with Bob.
Bob Greenwade.
Michelle.
Michelle Waffle Otero.
Irene.
My name's Irene. I'm the cosplay counselor, and I'm from Orange County, California.
And last but not least, Miss Amanda Martini.
Hi, I'm Amanda Martini. I'm a cosplayer, drag queen, yada, 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 from the Washington, D.C. area.
Nice. And we are going to be discussing if the X-Men sequel, X-Men 2, X-Men United, was worth making. So the film came out in 2003, 3 years after the first one, since it was such a success. And again, as we all know, it was directed once again by Bryan Singer. I know we ripped on him really hard at the previous episode. Starting with Irene, since she's new here, what was your thoughts when you first heard about them making a sequel for X-Men?
I mean, I'm a fan of action movies, and for this particular movie, I really enjoyed all the action sequence, the acting, aside from one character, but I really did think the majority of the cast members did an excellent job portraying the characters, and just really showing the story move along. So I was a fan, and of course the ending made it so that you want more.
Oh, it definitely did. Next, I'll start with Bob. What were your thoughts when you first heard that the X-Men was getting a sequel?
When I found out that it was going to happen, I was thinking, okay, cool. Hopefully, it will be an improvement over the first one, because I was kind of lukewarm on the first movie, for most of the reasons that you mentioned in that podcast. Plus the costumes. I was not a fan. I'm not a fan of the black leather costumes that Bryan Singer decided to use for those. I would have preferred something a little closer, not necessarily like what was in the comics, but a little closer to the comics ones that I think they ended up using in the later alternate timeline movies. But I was looking forward to seeing this mostly excellent cast come forward with their characters again.
Lovely. Amanda, what were your thoughts when you heard that the X-Men was getting a sequel movie?
So I was super excited because this is still fairly new internet era for me. So it's like it's not like today where you like everything like immediately gets shared. Like you only got like I think I learned about it from like maybe like a news article in like an Entertainment Weekly. So like it again, it's not like you got immediate like results and like internet buzz over stuff like that. At least for me, I was not like on like a lot of message boards or things like that. I was really excited. As much as I ragged on the movie on the last podcast, I mean, I'm still a fan. I still watch the movies regularly. It is still a favorite of mine. So when I first heard that it was getting a sequel, I was really excited and hoping for some improvement on what we saw in the first one.
And last but not least, Michelle, what were your thoughts when you heard that X-Men was getting a sequel?
Well, I just want to reiterate that I too, like Jamanda, thought that we were going to get something like better than the first one. I had been reading the comics and I had watched the animated series. So the first movie that I saw, I didn't really like get what I needed from it. And then when they did like the trailer for the new one, they were introducing some new characters like Lady Deathstrike and Nightcrawler, and I was excited for those characters, and then when I saw them on screen, I was a little disappointed. I was disappointed with the rollout. Like, I feel like the story had too many characters and we could have done away with that and got something a little more solid.
It basically pulled a Mortal Kombat Annihilation, just introduced every well-known character.
So-
What?
So I'm just gonna jump on. I mean, I was gonna say I'm gonna jump on with what you guys were saying. Like I think that's one of the issues with the X-Men movies in general. There's so many characters that we don't get a lot of character development with them because unfortunately they didn't get the benefit of solo movies like a lot of the MCU characters did, and because also like the X-Men don't really, that's like not really like their vibe in general anyway. So it's like for us comic book fans, it's like, okay, well, we kind of understand who these people are, but for like an audience, they may not know who they are, and then it's like, now we're going to add more people. So instead of developing the characters that we've already introduced, let's just add 20 more characters.
Oh man, I was one of those people when I saw it on DVD again, like the first one. I was like, who are these characters? Like, I had to I literally had to learn more about these characters when X-Men Evolution, the animated series, came out. I guess starting with
sorry to interrupt.
No,
sorry,
go ahead. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
But again, I feel like that's also part of it too. Is so like Michelle and I probably Bob and Irene. We watched the original animated series, and then after the first movie came out, then X-Men Evolution came out, which did a slightly better job of giving us a little more backstory. So it's like the fans and new fans are getting like these different backstories and different versions of the characters. And then if they were gonna try to jump into the comics, like 2000s, jumping straight into like the Morrison era of of X-Men, like and Extreme X-Men at the time, like that was a wild time to try to like jump in. So I feel like the movie, the sequel, like kind of there was like a little bit of a detriment because it was like that we're not getting like introductions of these characters. They're just trying to jam all these people in. We're getting all of these different versions of all of these characters.
No, definitely. So speaking of the characters, we're actually introduced to some new characters. I mean, new to the movie, old to the comics. First off, what were your thoughts when you heard Alan Cumming was going to be playing as Kurt Wagner, aka Nightcrawler? Starting with Michelle.
I was like, WTF. I mean, he's a great actor, superb, but I just didn't feel that he was like my Nightcrawler. I don't know. He just like there were so many things wrong with that character in this movie for me that I was just not on board with that casting. He's a great actor though.
Oh no,
great actor.
I get
Aside from this, great actor. Mhm.
Oh no. I find it funny how they cast a British actor to play a German character.
Yeah.
I'm just
Scottish, by the way.
a Scottish actor trying to play a German character is like, he tried his best. I just can't imagine sitting in a chair all day, having all that body paint, and then having his three feet. Was it claws? How many fingers does he have? Is it 4 or 3?
It's 2. It's basically
Or like,
Yeah.
okay,
finger, thumb.
I can't imagine he was comfortable in that.
No, he wasn't. That's why he didn't do any more. He was like, no, this was terrible.
I don't blame him.
So like I knew who Alan Cumming was because I'm a Broadway girl, so I of course was exposed more to him when he was on because he had just come off the very successful revival of Cabaret on Broadway. I also knew him because he was in Spice World. Duh.
I forgot he was in that movie.
Yes. But anyway, so I guess like Bryan Singer was like, yeah, he can play German.
Are you?
Please don't kill me. I didn't mean to harm anyone.
Now, why would people have gotten that impression? What's your name?
Wagner. Kurt Wagner.
He was in Cabaret. Sure. That's fine.
Never assume, Brian. Never assume.
But I mean, I didn't necessarily hate him or hate like the kind of changes that they made to the character. It's like I didn't mind some of it. I did not care for the tattoos. That was something I did not.
So that was added in. He never had tattoos. He's just a, dark blue skinned mutant who has a tail and Spock looking hands and pointed ears.
So I mean, I didn't hate it. Like he was really cool in that opening action sequence was awesome. His introduction was really cool, but then it was just kind of like, all right, thanks, okay, bye.
Yeah.
But again, he was so apparently uncomfortable in his performance that I think that kind of like shone through and being like, yeah, I don't need any more of this.
And correct me if I'm wrong. Anyone can correct me. He does change his skin tone from the comics, like he did in the movie and animated series, right?
I'm sorry.
Nightcrawler, was he always blue or like
he's always blue? He was born blue.
Okay,
Yeah.
so like I know like in the movie he has a different skin tone, and I know like in the animated X-Men Evolution series he can look human. Was that ever a thing before?
Well, so the image inducer is a thing established in the early comics in the 70s. That was a thing, and then Nightcrawler was like, you know what, I don't need this image inducer. So like that, but I never liked the image inducer. And in fact, recently, I think it was somewhere on the whole X Twitterverse, someone actually posted a lot of old letters from the 70s comics of especially female readers saying, Nightcrawler is so cute and so sexy. He doesn't need that image inducer. We love him just the way he is.
Wow.
And one of them was actually then a later comic book writer, a female comic book writer. But
Nice.
anyway.
Actually, there's something to that because there's an alternate version, alternate universe Nightcrawler in the comics who has a daughter who is Nocturne of the Exiles, and I happen to think that she's super cute.
Irene, what were your thoughts on Alan Cumming playing as Kurt Wagner, aka Nightcrawler, in this X-Men sequel?
Well, I didn't really mind his performance, especially in the beginning when he's jumping around and like there's a lot of action, your eyes going everywhere, you're just trying to figure out what's going on. So I didn't really mind that much. I mean, I do feel like he doesn't get as much attention because it's spread around with all the different X-Men, because you've got a lot of characters and you're trying to make this movie within a time period that like people don't fall asleep. I personally didn't mind it as much. There are other actors, I think, in the movie that I felt like their performance was a little bit more not my cup of tea, but I didn't mind Kurt Wagner's performance as Nightcrawler.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to agree with all of you. The opening scene is probably still my favorite, especially when he does the whole blue mist thing when he teleports. Again, was that a thing in the comics or was that added in the movie?
Yeah, that's that, and they got the BAMF special effects, I think, spot on. Also, the sound effect.
Nice.
But, I had not heard of Alan Cumming before this.
Same. I heard of him in one movie years prior where he played as like a magician or something.
Yeah, I actually thought that the performance aspect of the character was just about perfect. The tattooing / scarring on his body, that actually was almost insulting. The dialogue was kind of stilted as far as his religious belief, especially since I was coming off of watching him on the X-Men '97 animated show where it was portrayed so beautifully. The German accent was a little bit too heavy on the V's for the W's, because German like Russian, as they're basically the same phoneme. But as far as his own just his own work on the character, I thought it was just wonderful. I especially loved the little conversation on the plane between Kurt and Aurora.
We can be safe.
Safe from what?
Everyone else.
You know, outside of the circus, most people were afraid of me. But I didn't hate them. I pitied them. Do you know why? Because most people will never know anything beyond what they see with their own two eyes.
Well, I gave up on pity a long time ago.
Someone so beautiful should not be so angry.
That was, both of them had just such a wonderful subtlety in their expressions and in how they delivered their lines about anger gets you through, I'll try faith.
Yeah, definitely. The next character, Kelly, and I'll start with Irene. Thoughts on Kelly Hugh playing as Lady Deathstrike? What were your thoughts when you heard she was playing as again, a character I've only ever seen in the original animated series, and I saw her in a animated XMen film. I mean, Wolverine animated film. What were your thoughts?
I mean, I thought she did a suitable job. She was very stoic, very stern. Kind of had that like, boss bitch kind of like, like somebody you didn't want to mess with. And obviously the choreography when she was fighting with Wolverine.
Yes.
I always love really, really action-packed sequences. Like, I'm somebody who just wants to be super involved with everything going on the screen. So I think she portrayed the character well.
Nice. Oh yeah, no, definitely. Amanda, your thoughts on Kelly Hugh playing as Lady Deathstrike?
I also really liked Kelly Hugh. I wish she was actually given dialogue. She only has one line.
Yeah, what are you doing here? When she sees that the janitor disguised as
yeah. So like she only gets what I wish she was given more. So they took a character from the God Loves Man Kills graphic novel, who was Stryker's right-hand woman, and sort of like then also took Deathstrike and just kind of put them together, which was, listen, I was okay with that choice. I wish she was given more, and it is, in my opinion, one of the most heartbreaking scenes at the end, towards the end of the movie, when she gets killed by the adamantium injection. Because you can tell that she did not she was obviously mind controlled the whole time, and you're just kind of wondering like what is her backstory, like who was she, like what actually is her story. And again, like to me, like it was really sad that we didn't really get to know that. I'm trying to remember in the I don't even think in the novel, the novelization written by Chris Claremont, which I'll probably be bringing up a couple times. I don't think they even delved into her backstory in that either, which again just shows that they were kind of they wanted like the cool badass to fight Wolverine, which again, awesome.
Best scene ever.
Yeah. It like when her claws come out and he's like oh, oops. It is a great moment in the movie. I wish she was given more, and also Kelly Hugh is just such a great actress. That I like. They could have given her more to do, but that's also any female character ever in a superhero movie. So
hopefully that's changing. So
I mean, a year prior to this, she was playing as the Nimdom sorceress Cassandra in The Scorpion King with Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I feel like that really, got her. I think that's what, seeing that, it's like I think what got her the role as Lady Deathstrike.
I think also she was a regular on. We were talking about her before we started. She was a regular on Martial Law, starring Sammo Hung and Arsenio Hall. Prior to that, since this movie, she's done The Librarian: The Quest for the Spear, where she got to use her martial arts skills. She was a recurring character as the villain China White on Arrow. She's done so many other things and shown such great acting. I just wish that she'd been able to do more. The heaviest acting she got was when she was kind of starting to come out of her spell when Xavier was first woken up, and Stryker put a little extra drop on her. I was hoping that she would come to her senses the same way Scott did. In just like the preceding scene, rather than will we have it to kill her, she comes around and becomes a bit more of an animated character, a bit more of a standard Kelly Hu type of character.
Right. Same question for you, Michelle. What were your thoughts when you heard Kelly Hu was playing as Lady Deathstrike?
Well, I think it was perfectly cast. I think she did, the best job that she could with what they gave her. Like, the character is definitely a strong, female equivalent, basically like the female Wolverine almost. It's just so much of her backstory was left out. Yes, her and Wolverine have history, but there's a lot of history there. And she is a woman that fights with honor too. So there's been some times in the comics where her and Wolverine were going at it, but then she doesn't fight dirty either. So I was just really disappointed that they met and they didn't really know each other like they're supposed to, and then she gets killed with the adamantium injection. It just felt really I don't know. I was sad for the character because she had so much more to give, and I don't think they needed to kill her. I think they could have brought her back. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe they tried to in Wolverine Origins. I haven't seen that movie in a while, but I think they tried to kind of retcon that character a little bit.
They I know we're talking about X2, but the other films, there were a lot of stuff with retcon. I personally liked Kelly Hu. Yeah, her death scene with the adamantium overdose was really sad, especially when the adamantium was pouring out of her eyes. I will say that's probably one of the coolest special effects. I don't know if that was practical or CGI.
It would have to be CGI, I think, because the CGI, and you noted in the podcast for XMen, the CGI in these movies is well ahead of its time. Almost all of it stands up to modern standards. You wouldn't have to update anything.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Maybe it's an unpopular.
Wait, what was that? Everyone's talking at once.
I was going to say it might be an unpopular opinion, but I felt like when Wolverine killed Kelly Hu's character, as well as they had left Stryker's son at the very end. I mean, I don't know. It didn't seem very heroic to me. Yes, they all did really bad things and they all tried to kill all the good guys, but it didn't seem, to just leave him for dead over there, it seemed somewhat cowardly to me.
Yeah, saving Jason would have been a good thing, but I was thinking of I watched it over the past couple of weeks 4 times, including once this afternoon. But the third time, it occurred to me that Lady Deathstrike has Wolverine's healing factor, as we saw when her forehead suddenly healed, and he's going, ooh.
Mhm.
When he filled her up with adamantium, her healing factor may have just kept her alive, but trapped in her skull, and that's kind of a horrific end more than death.
That
But,
actually,
but also to go along with like what Irene was saying, it's just kind of sad that they weren't given. I mean, like again, in a lot of superhero films, the villains have to die because that's what we do. But it was just kind of sad that like a lot of times when you have those more like tragic villain characters that are either doing stuff that they didn't want to do or being forced to do, they usually get like a heroic moment, like a chance for redemption before then. Like maybe they sacrifice themselves to save the hero or stuff like that. And with both of them, we didn't get that. And maybe that's kind of why you're feeling that way, because we didn't get that like audience catharsis of like, oh no, in the end they were good, and they sacrificed themselves to save the heroes instead of them dying the way they did.
pretty much.
Yeah, because they're more complex characters. They're not like those two in particular were not purely bad, purely good. There was a little bit of each, but because their ending was so, I don't know, the polar opposite of some type of redemption, as you were saying, I think that's what, I agree that like it kind of left a hole in my heart. And I'm like, wait a minute, like I think that there's something missing.
Oh no, definitely. Which actually brings, before we start on the plot, the last 2 characters who were brought in, Jason Stryker and William Stryker. I'll start with Bob here. Was Jason ever in the comics?
Jason is in the comics, but he is very unlike what he was described in here. I just like Jason is a little bit more like Jason Wingard, the mastermind, who that is his power, is casting illusions into people's minds, and he was partially responsible for Jean Grey's emergence as Dark Phoenix, for the darker side of her personality, because he was spending a lot of time tormenting her at that time. Jason Stryker, I'd have to go look this up. Let's see. Yeah. Looking this up on here, possesses the ability to create a blinding white light from his body that is powerful enough to knock several people unconscious. Reading that directly from Wikipedia. He has bright pink skin and misshapen head. So it's really, he was nothing like that. But Jason Wingard does exist in the comics. It's just this Jason Wingard is more like, this Jason Stryker is more like Jason Wingard. And for me, in this case, it worked out, I think, okay to kind of bring in, to kind of mash the 2 characters together, because it fed the plot appropriately. You couldn't really do Jason Stryker the way he is in the comics, or Jason Wingard the way he is in the comics, without bringing the 2 together.
I remember watching the scene when William brings Jason out in front of Xavier, and Charles is like shocked and everything. I remember like how William was saying how Jason was manipulating their minds, and that his William's wife basically took a power drill to her head to stop Jason from mind controlling them. I guess William Stryker made it seem like Jason was abusing his powers after he left Charles's school. Demanda, what were your thoughts on the actor and the character Jason Stryker?
So kind of what Bob was saying, obviously the character that they had in the movie was more based on Mastermind. The character of Jason Stryker was not really introduced until way after the movie came out. It's sort of like one of the things, like in the first movie they gave Rogue the name Marie DeCanto, and then later Chris Claremont created a character named Marie DeCanto in Extreme X-Men that no one cared about and was immediately forgotten. so again, so like they introduced this character Jason Stryker in the movie, and they decided to like take that name and do something else. Something that are we just talking about Jason? Or are we talking about the Strikers in general?
We're talking about the Strikers in general, and
Okay.
the actors who played him.
So the actor who played Jason was fine. He was creepy. The little girl was. I love creepy kids in movies. They're always super creepy. Played. It is interesting that Jason used a little girl in his mind, but
I'm guessing that's something that Charles was. I don't know.
Yeah. Again, we don't need to talk about gender politics, but Brian Cox is amazing, and I love him in almost everything that he does. One of my favorite things he was in was Long Kiss Goodnight with Gina Davis, which is a brilliant movie. One of the things that I did not actually like, I liked Stryker in the original comic that they sort of took inspiration from, God Loves Man Kills, where it's more of a religious zealot nonsense instead of like this paramilitary.
You mean like that?
That's just Ultimate Universe version there.
Yeah,
that's the alternate universe.
So you're like a reverend, basically.
Yes. So in the original comic that William Stryker was introduced in, he was a very Jerry Falwell, what's his name, Baker, who was married to Tammy Faye.
Jim Baker.
Yeah, Jim Baker. It was very like that, because that was kind of the era that book was written in. And I was hoping a little bit more for that, and having him sort of like wrapped up in the whole like Weapon X, early days of Xavier kind of thing. I was not a huge fan of. It worked for the movie. It was fine. It was then retconned to death in all of like the other movies. But I mean, I again, as I said, I love Brian Cox. I love him in almost everything that he does. So I was here for it. Yeah, that's all.
I double checked, by the way. Jason Stryker first appeared in comics in 1983.
Oh, did he really?
He'd been around. He'd already been around for 20 years. I reopen this and find the exact citation. He was in Marvel graphic novel number 5. January 1983.
So he was in God Loves Man Kills.
Might have been. I didn't see him in that. I haven't read that.
Novel number 5.
Irene.
I don't remember. Anyway, moving on.
Your thoughts on the Strikers and how they were portrayed in this movie?
I think they were bad, and they were, what you would expect for a villain. As an audience, you're looking for key characteristics of people who are doing things for their own self-interest. And I think that the actors portrayed them, brilliantly. Like I said earlier, I just wish that Jason Stryker had a more heroic ending. I mean, he could have died, but it just seemed like they just left him there. And that was, I guess, the only thing about the story that kind of bothered me. It left me a little like not feeling fulfilled. But the acting from both actors, I felt like they delivered. So bravo.
Michelle, same question. What are your thoughts on the Strikers portrayed in this film and the actors who played them?
I think going back to like what Demanda said about William Stryker being like having more of like a religious background, I think it would have made more sense to have that come into play, and why he was maybe using Nightcrawler in particular to do his dirty work because of Nightcrawler's religious background as well. I think there were just a lot of like missed opportunities to make all of these characters connect and mesh better. And then with the son, I didn't really feel bad for him. I feel like he was kind of in on it a little bit. I think because Jason looked like he'd been maybe lobotomized or something.
Yeah, because he
was like a really bad kid.
He has some markings.
Yeah.
If you like the scene when he's first introduced, you see like the ink markings on his head.
He also has a scar on the side of the head.
Oh yeah, that too.
So he
I-
was probably like a bad kid, yeah, with a bad dad who was like, well, I'm just gonna use my kid to
Pretty much.
further my agenda.
Yeah.
I guess for
Um,
me, because
I
oh, sorry. I guess for me, because I'm a school counselor during the day, hence cosplay counselor, I work with a lot of students, some that come from very difficult families, I guess you could say, and some with very traumatic pasts. And I felt like watching the movie, the way Jason was portrayed, it seemed like there was a lot of manipulation, a lot of trauma, a lot of pain, a lot of stress. And I think that developed him into this kind of machine that just did whatever his father wanted. And I felt like, because when you have that type of trauma when you're young, it doesn't go away. And so I think that with that storyline, I guess to me, I kind of felt like he really was the victim in the story, that his dad was utilizing him as a weapon. And so he wasn't able to, I guess in my mind, because coming from my profession, yes, he did make some bad choices, but it stemmed from being manipulated and being used as a weapon. So yeah, so I guess that's, to me, like I felt like he was a victim in this situation.
I mean, no, that's how I kind of, with, especially like William Stryker whispering in his ear to tell Charles to find all the mutants to basically flat out kill them all. Like William Stryker's thing was like, you did this to my son, so now I'm gonna get back at you for, and I'm gonna use you because you can basically tap into Cerebro and find all the mutants and blah 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 and kill mutants.
And with children, they really, especially if you come from such a traumatic past, all a lot of these kids want is their parents' approval. And so even if let's say, I mean, the way he was portrayed in the movie, it just looked like he wasn't able to think for himself because he just had this like kind of like dazed look.
Dead look on his face.
So I don't really know if he's really capable of making his own like decisions consciously. To me, it just felt like his dad was just manipulating him and using him, like I said, as a weapon.
Mhm.
So
pretty much.
of course, if you're a kid and all you've ever wanted, and his dad's never accepted him growing up, right? So to me, I'm thinking, if my family has never accepted me and I can finally do something where my dad will allow me to be his son, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, that's pretty much the vibe I got. Now on to go ahead, Bob.
I wanted to give a special recognition to Michael Reed Mckay, who played Jason. That's a very challenging piece. It's kind of the opposite challenge of playing Cyclops, where he gets to use everything but his eyes. Michael did a lot of acting using only his eyes. The way he turned his eyes or express using just his lids, and that was like orders of magnitude better than his performance as Bane in Batman and Robin.
Oh, that's right. That was him.
Yes.
Oh I
just found that out.
This is like a second comic book role. Nice. Now onto the plot. Basically, like the beginning of the movie, Wolverine's trying to find out more who he is. I feel like, starting with Demanda, who would you feel like the main the characters? Who was who was this movie mainly focused on in the movie?
So, like most of the X-Men movies, it was Wolverine. And the thing is, I mean, I didn't mind it because like it made sense with kind of what they were doing, and the fact that after the success of the first movie, it like literally launched Hugh Jackman's career. So yeah, you're like, money please, like like that's gonna give them money. It was a little detrimental in my opinion to the rest of the movie, kind of what we were talking about before, where it's like, because they felt the need to focus so much on Wolverine, not everyone else gets the chance. Because they tried to build up Rogue in that first movie, and then she gets backseated like the only other thing she really gets to do is fly the X-plane at the end of the movie for 3 minutes, which also which was very frustrating because I'll get to more of that in a minute. But like they definitely just focus on him. So another kind of like tidbit is this movie then was filmed after Halle Berry won the Oscar. So Halle Berry got to get a little more pull in what it is that she wanted to do. So that's why her role got a little expanded, which is why I think then there was less of Nightcrawler, which I also then think in turn pissed off Alan Cumming, as he's like, I'm sitting in makeup for 27 hours and I get
27 hours?
No.
I was gonna say. I mean,
that's an exaggeration.
I was gonna say.
But you know, he sits in makeup for hours and hours, and then kind of has this like small role. And Halle's like, I have an Oscar now, so
it was like four scenes altogether.
Yeah, she's like, I want to do more. I want to say more. So like that whole final battle with Jason was just supposed to be Nightcrawler, and they then wrote Storm into it because Storm's like, I need to do more, please. The only, like, in my opinion, good thing that came out of her winning is that she got slightly better hair. It still had bangs. It was still terrible. I promise not to go on and on about the wig.
We covered a good chunk of that.
Yeah, but we already covered it. But like, it's slightly better. But like, so I mean, good for Halle for being like, hey, I am a formidable Hollywood commodity. Like, I want more, please. And she got it. So good for her. It still wasn't great. Like, she still didn't get to do a lot. She still didn't really, in my opinion, get to do a lot of cool Storm things. But you know, whatever. The other thing about the plot that I kind of want to talk about is so one of my favorite memories of going to see the movie is when they strike the mansion and Colossus comes through. I literally grabbing my friend's hand and being like, oh my god, it's Colossus. It was total gaze, just being like, oh my god, it was awesome. But are we gonna like talk more about the plot, or do you want me to just keep going?
We're gonna talk more about the plot.
Okay. All right.
Another main focal point of the plot is Jean Grey, her power is expanding more after, you know, we talked about in the first podcast how, you know, after that whole Ellis Island thing, her powers kind of awakened. I mean, she's starting to like hear people's thoughts, which is kind of overwhelming for her. Irene, what are your thoughts on the plot for the second main character plot for Jean Grey and how her powers are slowly developing into Dark Phoenix?
So I love Jean Grey, and that's why I love Michelle so much, because she's my favorite Jean Grey. I hated her in this movie. I don't know. I just felt like she kind of gave me like Kristen Stewart Twilight vibes. Like, it was so flat. It was, I don't know. I was not connected. Like, I did not feel invested in her character. And so obviously, because I'm not invested in her, I kind of just like zoned out with her storyline and like her wanting to like try to figure out like what's going on with her powers. I mean, she did redeem herself at the end and, you know, sacrifice herself, but I was not having it. Like, I really hated her character in this movie. Like, she was just very unlikable to me. So I'm sorry.
You know, that, hey, to each his own. There's nothing wrong with that. Michelle, what are your thoughts, I guess added on to that, about the other plot with seeing more of Magneto and him being in that glass prison? What were your thoughts on his plot arc, since Magneto kind of had more, you know, added to his character?
Well, before we talk about Magneto, I just want to talk about Jean Grey really quickly, because
Go ahead.
That's my girl. I thought it was a very interesting take at the end the way that she evolves to become the Phoenix, because in the books, it all happens in space, like it's in the cosmos. It's like she's still saving her friends in a jet, but it's just happening in space, where here it's like the opposite, like it's in the water, it's like it's in the earth, kind of like she comes from the earth, like the Phoenix comes from the depths of the water. So I thought that was just kind of like a cool little like switch to kind of get rid of like the whole Shi'ar plot.
Mhm.
But I mean, with Magneto, I always feel in all these X-Men movies, it's always about Magneto. Like, it doesn't have to be. Like,
the mutant's
yeah.
right. The mutant's right activist.
There's other baddies, I mean, that they could have used. I think they could have just kind of kept Magneto in the prison, or he could escape, but like he didn't. I don't know. I just don't think he needed to be there that much. I did like Rebecca Romaine's Mystique in this, though. I felt like she was really badass.
Plus, we got to
Like,
see
she
Rebecca
got to do a whole lot
Romaine.
more.
We got to see Rebecca Romaine, and without her being in the Mystique makeup.
Your natural face,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that one scene is just, God, the line bottoms up and shoves a needle in that guy's ass full of metal.
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm sure Rebecca Romaine loved it. That I'm sure she was like, even if it was just for a few minutes, I'm sure she was glad not to have to wear that blue 8-hour makeup.
Yeah.
And I
But
think
she does a great job.
Oh no, she
wearing it.
does. She
She
does.
does. I thought her material, as far as dialogue and acting as herself, was kind of weak. And her skills are there. I mean, I was a big fan watching her in The Librarians, where she had the regular role from beginning to end of Eve Baird. Just absolutely fantastic. And here's, I think, actually, most of the characters were a bit more stoic than they needed to be.
Yeah.
Overall, which kind of has to be the director's job. And it's really hard too when you have a character who is a shapeshifter who impersonates other people, because you have to have other actors who are playing their part at that in that time, and they only get to play that when they're themselves. So Rebecca was kind of, again, at a handicap here and did all right with what she had.
At least she was given lines this time. I don't think she was.
So her and Magneto do, however, have one of the best moments in the movie when they're on the plane, and he just goes, "We love what you've done with your hair."
We love what you've done with your hair.
That line, I'm just like, first of all, bitch,
Yeah.
Queen Magneto, Ian McKellen as like old Queen Magneto is like one of my favorite things. Like, it's so good. And I mean, first of all, Ian McKellen, I agree with Michelle being like, we don't need to focus on Magneto, we don't need to focus on Charles, we don't need to focus on Wolverine all the time. But the way that Ian McKellen delivers those lines, like when they're at the campfire and he's talking about Nightcrawler, but Wolverine's like, I've already done this stuff. He's like, it's not all about you, Mary. Like, there are other people here. Like, there are other things. I do love Ian McKellen and his portrayal of Magneto, but I do agree that we could have had a little less.
Oh no,
I think there was as much of Ian McKellen as there was, because he's Ian Bloody McKellen.
Well, and also he had just come off of an Oscar nomination for the first Lord of the Rings movie. So again, he's probably like, hi, not only am I fucking Sir Ian McKellen, but I also have an Oscar nomination.
Oh yeah, no.
I also, just side note, I do love the fact that 2 of the female cast members actually had Oscars and were given very little to do, and the people who did not got a lot to do, but that's also just me.
Although, going back to that bit about I love what you've done with your hair, I thought Anna Paquin's response with that, with taking off the glove and his look on her face, was
just wanted to threaten, like, you say that again, I'll touch you and kill it, basically drain your power like you did to me.
Yeah.
I feel like So actually, one thing I forgot to talk about Anna Paquin, character Rogue in the first X-Men, before we go more to the plot. I know Rogue has like a Southern Belle accent. I feel like Anna Paquin I couldn't really hear the Southern accent Rogue has like in the animated series and everything. Is that like something Anna Paquin tried to do, or is that just something like no, you don't need a Southern accent?
She had a very like it was kind of there, but it wasn't like as stereotypical as like the cartoons have been, or just the way that her dialogue is usually written in the comics. I was actually okay with that. I mean, not everyone that I know from the South needs to sound like, you know, they're chewing on a weed and, you know, in the side of their mouth or whatever. I was fine. I was fine with her accent in the movie. She did a more drawn out version when she eventually did True Blood.
Right.
Yeah, I have in-laws in living in Alabama, and I thought her accent sounded just about like most of them when they'd been coming out to the north for a while, like my father-in-law did.
So with back to Michelle, so the story, so later, you know, when it gets later on in the movie, what did you think of Stryker's attack on the expansion? What were your thoughts on that scene with like Wolverine doing his thing, and also with the brief probably 4 or 5 minutes we saw of Colossus helping out? What were your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, we needed more Colossus. Okay.
We didn't even get a
I
whole lot
feel
of him
like
in X3. We saw more.
Well,
We saw
I
more of him in Deadpool than
don't
we
like
did
it
in
when
the X movies.
Yeah. Well, that was CGI Colossus. This was real life Colossus.
Daniel Cudmore.
Who, by the way, responded to me when I told him that he was super hot in the X-Men movies. So
Nice.
you're
Lucky.
welcome.
Oh my god.
But
I think that scene, I mean, it wasn't my favorite scene in the whole movie. I'm not really like the action girl. I'm more like, I like the little like subtle scenes. But I mean, that was pretty ballsy, I guess, to just like go in there and attack a bunch of kids and like leave them with Wolverine. I think he was dubbed the babysitter at one point.
he pretty much was the babysitter at that point. You know, asking a teenager for a beer when there's no beer.
Got any beer?
This is a school.
So that's a no?
Yeah, that's a no.
Got anything other than chocolate milk?
There should be some soda in the small cupboard.
Thanks.
Like, this is a school, sir.
It was like his daddy moment to bond with his surrogate daughter's boyfriend, you know?
Pretty much, which I'm glad we got to see more of Iceman than just that one scene, those two scenes that we saw him in. Well, 3 technically.
I think Iceman got like I think he got a fair amount for this movie, considering how many people were in it. You know, we saw him like help his fellow students out. He got a lot of cool interactions with Wolverine. He made that ice wall, you know, so that Wolverine could escape.
Best scene by far. Love how part of that was practical.
I mean, and later on we get to see like a little bit of his backstory, like with his parents and everything. So I think like he really held it down for the up and coming like young mutant actors there. Like Rogue, we barely got anything. Like I think most of her lines were screaming.
Mm-hmm. She was more of the damsel in distress, whiny girl in this one than she was.
But that part of the film right there wasn't a whole lot that she could do. When she can absorb somebody's powers and memories at a touch, and you know, what are you going to do that when you have soldiers shooting bullets at you? So she really was kind of the powerless type in that particular point. On the whole, really, I thought the storming the mansion was handled fairly well. There were a few little bits I think that probably could have been done better, just as detail work. But Michelle was saying, like the subtle little bits, like what happened just before then when Willie's trying to get the a beer and ends up getting a soda and it's out of the cupboard, and he kind of looks at it and hands it to Bobby to cool off.
Like, here, make yourself useful.
Thanks. Hey, no problem. Yeah, it's one of those little things of how mutant can use their powers for just like everyday uses.
Yeah.
And that is just one of those cool little touches that you can do.
I know. Demanda, the scene before the X-Men manage to get stormed. Who is that kid who's like looking at the TV, blinking, he can change the channel? Is he a character in the comics?
No. So this is one of my biggest complaints about the X movie franchise as a whole. There are so many, and again, as just dubbed today by the X-Reads podcast, the patron saint of Z-list characters. There are so many characters already established in the Marvel universe that they can use. It literally takes so little research. And again, when you're producing a Marvel franchise, you can just literally call Marvel and go, "Hey, I need a character that does this. Who do we got?" Like, you can literally have them at their fingertips. So that kid, they named him Artie. No, Artie's the kid with the forked tongue in the movies.
Yeah. I was wondering if he was Artie.
Yeah, I don't believe that kid ever was named. I think he might have a name in the credits, but I don't think he was ever like called by a name in the films. But no, that character was created for the movies, and the Artie for the movies was also created because he was just a kid with a forked tongue.
He just sticks out his tongue like twice at the little girl and at Stryker. So, and the thing is, they could have had any other characters do those things, but they decided not to, which is it makes me very frustrated. That I'm like, you could have had already established characters, have fans like me been like, oh my gosh, the fact they used like that character, which is one of the reasons that I love the Gifted TV show, was because they obviously got the pamphlet and were like, hey, I need this random character that can plant dreams in people. I know this Morlock beautiful dreamer that we've used 4 times before. Let's use her. Like, that's just that's like good, in my opinion, adaptation storytelling of an established franchise. Nice.
So like, that's fine. The scene itself is cool. I didn't mind it. So one of the things that I also, I want to talk about.
I will be right back. You guys talk amongst yourselves more about that scene. I'll be right back. I got to use the bathroom.
Yeah.
Okay. It's okay. I'll just keep talking. But
I'll interrupt.
In the novel adapted by Chris Claremont, the lead soldier guy, he gets a name in the book, and I did not look it up, unfortunately. But he actually gets a bit of a meatier role in the novelization. Like, he's a POV character a couple of times, where we kind of follow like his journey, and like we're like inside his head and get. Are
you talking about Lyman?
Lyman, yes, Lyman,
played by Peter Wingfield, who had been a recurring actor on The Highlander.
Cool work. Love that. Love that journey for him. But yeah, so in the novel, in the original graphic novel, again, God Loves Man Kills, the whole thing when they start to try to kill the mutants, there's a bunch of people in the audience, and his right-hand woman, who then they kind of merged into Lady Deathstrike, all start to feel pain as well, and she eventually dies. And he's like, she was a mutant, she doesn't matter. So in the novelization, Lyman, you find out when Dark Cerebro starts to work, also is a mutant and starts to feel the pain, and everyone's like, what's up with him? Like, what's going on? And I'm a little bit sad that we missed that. And so I want to say in the scene of the X-Men Mansion Search, he gets some moments of going through and him feeling weird about attacking a school full of children and kidnapping children. And again, giving him, we were talking about earlier, giving him a little bit of that redemption arc of a villain who is very much questioning the motivations of the people that he reports to.
I was okay with I was mostly okay with Lyman being just a kind of functionary character, except for him being played by Peter Wingfield, who had already shown so much that he could do on the Highlander and later on Stargate and Sanctuary and Caprica and other series.
Now Irene, since you're a fan of the whole action and everything, what was your thoughts on that scene where Wolverine was basically just almost killing all the soldiers in the XMen mansion?
Well, I think it was very creative with how he fought and like kind of attacked, and I guess to me, like him killing the soldiers, like it was warranted. I mean, they went in with the intention to go and kidnap / kill all these kids, which is never going to be never going to fly by me. There was
also kind of the opposite of what the president told him to do.
Right. But I think that them going in with this action, it needed to happen so they can move the plot forward, so that they can try to go and, you know, flee away, and so that they can then come back together and try to figure out like what's going on. So you kind of need something really big and dramatic to happen for there to have progression. So, you know, I'm somebody who loves a lot of action, I like a lot of things happening. I thought it was very appropriate to help move the story along. So
Also, fun fact, that scene almost got an R rating because apparently there was a lot more blood and like very much like I am killing these soldiers. Whereas then in the cut that then was in the theatrical release, there's no blood. Like there's no blood on Wolverine's claws. Some of the guys, you can hear them groaning. That was added in later again to show that he's just hurting them. He's not.
We all know what's really going on. I mean, literally, like Wolverine, he jumps off like from like a banister or whatever. That whole, you know, where he's like yelling and just basically sticks the guy into the ground.
But it's kind of like in the old G.I. Joe cartoons where it's like if a plane explodes, you see the parachute over there. It's like. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, oh, see, look, the guy didn't die because there's a parachute over there.
It's not like Logan, which was actually got an R rating.
Well, exactly, and because again, they wanted to. I mean, the whole reason that movies go for the PG-13 is because obviously then they're more marketable because then kids can come see the movies. So, and parents then feel more comfortable bringing their maybe even preteen kids to come see those movies.
Yeah. So,
but I mean, in this particular scene, like you knew, like they were coming in and had every intention to go and like kill all these kids. So with Wolverine protecting them, killing them so that they don't, you know, take any of their kids, I felt like that was just because
absolutely,
only protecting them as opposed to like I'm gonna hurt you, but you're probably still gonna like kill my people. So.
And also, I would be remiss to not mention, I loved Siren's cameo. Of being like a literal siren and waking everyone
So that's
up.
who that was before she got tranked with those 3 darts.
Oh yeah, I was going to mention Siren as a matter of fact.
When was she introduced?
What do you mean, like comic book wise, or do you mean like in the movie?
The comic book. I know in the movie she's that girl who's like screaming really loud and everyone's like has to cover their ears.
In the comics, she was introduced in late 70s, early 80s, originally as a partner of Black Tom Cassidy, Banshee's cousin, and Juggernaut, because she was raised by Black Tom and Juggernaut. sort of like Rogue was raised by Mystique and Destiny in the comics. So she was originally their partner, but she was lied to by Black Tom, being like, your dad's a jerk and yada yada yada, and you need to like do stuff with us. And then she was like, oh, and also I believe her first appearance is in a Spider-Woman comic, because again Claremont
Yes.
had like, he was writing all of those books at the same time.
Nice.
And then
Spider-Woman.
eventually she joined the Exterminator, no, Fallen Angels, and then lived on Muir Island for a while, was on the Muir Island XMen before them joining X-Force.
Nice.
Yeah, she's first I was looking at that, introduced in Spider-Woman number 37, April 1981.